Welcome back to the SEANC View podcast. Today is another Gen Z takeover episode. My name is Samantha Cline, and I am the digital communication specialist here at SEANC. And with me today is Dontravis Williams. He is one of our member relations representatives, as well as Adam Winebarger, who is also a member relations representative. Then we have Tianna Alberts, who is one of our insurance specialists. And a guest who is a member is Alexandra Kaulback, who is a probation and parole officer. Welcome, everyone.
Ooh.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So the last time that we did a Gen Z takeover episode was more than a year ago, and we focused a lot on what attracts members under 40, younger millennials, older Gen Zs. However, this year, we are in the middle of a long session at the General Assembly, which means all of the new bills are being introduced and they are passing the budget. Right now, we have not gotten the budget for this year yet. We have heard Governor Stein's proposed budget as well as the Senate's proposed budget. We are still waiting for the proposed House budget. But there's a lot of things going on. And I know, Don, you were at the General Assembly with me last week.
Yes.
What was your perspective on how that lobby day went?
My experience was amazing. My first time ever being in the North Carolina General Assembly, kind of seeing how it worked, the system, actually meeting representative like Edward Goodwin, which he was very, very personal with me, gave me some life advice. But with us being there, fighting and talking about 549 bill, watching that go through, I think that it was important that we had state employees there. I like how they did recognize us because they do know what SEANC does for state employees and retirees. But my experience there was really good.
Yeah, it is very intense when it's your first time at the General Assembly. It's a very confusing building. None of you have been down there, have you?
I'm stuck in the mountains all the time.
Okay, it's not stuck. It is beautiful out there.
Well, I love it. I would rather be in the mountains.
Yeah.
But I have not. Answer your moral story. I have not made the General Assembly.
It's a very confusing building. It's basically a bunch of squares that you are walking around trying to find different legislators' office or where the actual Senate and House meet and find their chambers. It's very interesting exploring. The first time I went 2-3 years ago, I was lost. I had no idea where I was going. Chris told me to meet him by the fountain. There's like 6 fountains in that building. But what he was talking about with House Bill 549, that is the bill that takes the state human resources protections from some of the employees in the auditor's office. If you guys are not fully versed on that bill, I figured I would give you guys a general overview of it. And it did pass the House and will be moving to the Senate. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, me personally, bills like that is just, it spills over into other agencies, which is the terrifying part of it. You know, being a state, or like the outright state, North Carolina is one of 4 states in our country where there's no unions, no collective bargaining, no strikes. So the Human Resource Act was one of the only blankets of protection for state employees. And if it just opens up Pandora's box, then all those protections are just going out the window. The general public legitimately just, they do not realize that without state employees, our state is not healthy, our state is not clean, it's not educated. You can't drive across our state without state employees. So having these protections in place just to make it to where someone would want to work for the state in the first place is incredibly important. Also, just to get rid of whoever you wanted for whatever reason, there's no documentation they would have to put forth to get rid of employees, if I'm not mistaken on this bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's scary on what could happen, what could come from it. I know it's starting just in the auditor's office, but it could very easily spill over into any other agency and department across the state.
Yeah. Yeah. And Allie, as a state employee, how does this make you feel?
I think my biggest thing with this bill is what does it mean for day-to-day life in the office, in the work setting? And I think that state employees need to be informed about the things that are being brought to the General Assembly and be informed about things that are happening, period, because SEANC is kind of the only way that I've learned anything about the political system as a whole.
with this bill, it does take away some of the aspect of merit-based hiring. And because they're no longer protected by the State Human Resources Act, they could remove employees and replace them with, say, someone who they view as more of a political appointee. And that affects the quality of work, I believe, that we're getting. Because these are people's buddies who are getting just favors handed out to them and saying, okay, well, what can you do for me because I did something for you, rather than people who are really focused on the taxpayers and the state employees and getting the best people for the job. What about you, Tianna? What do you think about this bill?
I am thinking more that I would like more transparency of what was the end goal with passing this. Was it for the benefit of their constituents, or was this only to benefit politically for someone higher up? And it should always be for the benefit of our state workers and the future of how our state is run, rather than anything politically motivated, because politics flip and flop throughout time. So I want more transparency there. And if I can say something a little bit more bold, when it comes to something that can open Pandora's box, I would have liked all of the representatives to have been there representing their constituents.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard that that was not the case. There were quite a few members that really could have changed the outcome of whether or not this bill was passed.
Yes, I know there was 4 Democratic representatives who were absent that day. And there were also some representatives who stepped out of the room during the vote. It was a very close vote, to the point where I think that shows that this is not a very strong bill.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully the Senate sees that whenever they get to it. Because what we heard on the floor was, we will fix this whenever it goes to the Senate side. Because there is a lot of issues within that bill. The sponsors of the bill were mentioning that we will fix those issues when it's in the Senate. What do you guys think about that?
I think saying that you need to fix it, there's obviously something very wrong with what got passed.
I agree with one of the House representatives. Why are we trying to pass this bill so fast? Take the time to actually fix it before we try to pass. We have plenty of time to pass this bill. So I just think that they need to take their time to fix it before they try to send it to the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's incredibly ironic because a big topic on the state and federally is government efficiency.
Yep.
And how is it efficient to push something through to get passed and say, oh, we're going to fix it later?
Yeah.
Don't worry. We got you.
And it kind of, for me, it seems that the House is trying to, I know they passed a Bill 474, the DAYS Act. So it's like they're trying to give a lot of power to the state auditor very, very quick. Like one of the House representatives said, and I like to repeat because he did a great job of explaining it.
I believe that was Representative Longest.
Yes. So today we can have a amazing state auditor who actually wants to do a good job, but this state auditor after him still gets the same power. And he can't be, it's possible that he's not amazing as the current one that we do have.
Yeah. It seems kind of like just because we don't have to worry about the current state auditor necessarily taking advantage of that power, it doesn't mean that we don't have to worry about a future state auditor who may be of a different political party and doesn't have the same views as some of his staff and says, I don't like you, I want you gone. Because we hope that no one would ever take advantage of that power and turn it into something like that. But some people do enjoy the power. And it's very unfortunate to say that that is something that could happen. We want to believe that none of our state representatives would do that, but you never know, which is why we have those state human resources protections in place.
Correct. It's huge. It affects North Carolinians' lives by cutting different state agencies and vacancy jobs. We are at a shortage already as a state. So it's very, very important to have this power in the right hands, if even given out.
Yep. And for those of you who don't know, the DAVE Act is a position that gives the auditor power to review different state agency positions and decide whether they are needed or not. There is an AI perspective to it. We don't know how that will be utilized, but it was included in the DAVE Act. What are you guys' thoughts on giving the auditor that kind of power to look at jobs and make those suggestions of this job needs to be removed?
Well, as long as they're suggestions and not demands at the end of the day. Because growing up, going through school and doing like social studies and whatnot, everyone talked about checks and balances within government. Giving this type of power to a single person or office, I don't really consider that checks and balances. Me personally, that's my 2 cents on it. But it's just, it can make one feel uneasy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does sound like too much power is going to one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see where the fear is with that, because it's definitely scary whenever you go from a position that even a couple weeks ago, I wasn't sure what the auditor did. And it's very jarring when you have so many taxpayers and residents of the state who aren't aware what the auditor does, and now you're giving him this amount of power.
From my experience, when it comes to numbers and especially money, you want as many eyes on it as possible to make sure everything's correct and everything is in accordance. Also, you don't want to give people fear.
I think that is a big aspect, is that it's scary. It's a very much an unknown, and you never know what people are going to do with that kind of power. And it is jarring. Now, shifting topics a little bit, the political setting for Gen Z is very different than it was previously. From my perspective, as someone who is not very political, I am very much in the middle, and I kind of take every issue at face value. How do you think that our current political climate affects how Gen Zs and younger millennials view the political parties?
I think the current social climate is you have to be fully one or fully the other. And whereas it seemed like you used to be able to talk about things and you can discuss certain things and you can kind of be in the middle. And like you said, look at, policies and topics that people are bringing up, and you can look at which one you want and you can vote that way. But I think there's been such a push to be extremist about politics.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's frustrating because they may like aspects from one side and the other. However, they're seeing maybe one side isn't fighting all that hard and they don't seem genuine, and the other side is just going buck wild and hard hitting. And it's, I'm sure, frustrating because they're like, who can I really trust out here to really have my back with our future?
Yeah.
What I would say is, coming from like the millennial and even like the Gen Z side, the divide in the country, it's as big as it's ever been. Like there's a visible, almost tangible divide between left and right.
Yeah.
And we see that in the general public. And we also see that within state government, federal government, all that. And working across the aisle is just out of the picture. And just a younger adult, with decades and decades ahead of us, the hope keeps getting lower and lower of like what the future holds. You know what I mean? And I'm not calling anybody out, any one party, but working across the aisles, it doesn't seem like it's a thing anymore. As you were saying earlier, like back in the day, it seemed like left and right could argue, could debate, but they still wanted to work together to a better future for our state and our country. But it just doesn't seem like that's a thing anymore, state and federal level.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
I agree with my good friend Adam. I feel like we should be able to work together, not just for each other's parties, but their mindset should be, because we're in this position, we're here to actually serve the public. This is taxpayer dollars that they are receiving to be in this position. So they should put people and citizens first of actually what they're trying to achieve, not based off of what their parties want them to lean towards.
Bouncing off of discussing the social climate and how the two parties / Gen Z and younger millennials kind of see, as we've all said, things have been more divided than ever. What do you think as Gen Z and younger millennials we can do, whether it just be with talking to our friends or talking to peers? What do you think we can do to work on bridging that gap and getting back to a place where we can have these political conversations without them turning into massive disagreements, and we can work across the aisle?
Get off social media with these issues, because our age group, everyone's a social warrior. Some people are social warriors without a cause, which is a whole nother issue in itself. But our age group, they'll talk your ear off about some of these issues, but a lot of them just won't do anything about it.
Mhm.
They'll go straight to Facebook most of us don't use Facebook like that, but Instagram, TikTok, all that. We'll go there first, but that's not where change starts. It starts how you vote and then voicing your opinion to the people who are in those offices, those elected officials. Whether you voted for them or not, they're still going to be making decisions on your behalf. I think that's where it starts. Because everyone our age, we have opinions and we're not afraid to speak up, but we just don't speak up in the right platform, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah. I just recently had a discussion kind of with my friends about this, and let me know if you guys kind of view it the same way. I think that for some of us, at least me, I know I was in college during COVID, right when COVID went down, and everyone was at home on lockdown, and that definitely made it difficult to connect and socialize with people, and so people did turn a lot to social media, and I feel like in that, they became more brazen in the things that they said, because when you're saying something behind a screen, it's very different than saying something and having a conversation face-to-face with someone. So they became very comfortable with, I can say whatever I want, and there are limited repercussions. Yeah, people online might not like me. People online might not like what I say, but it's not like I'm going to get hurt. It became a thing of not having conversations anymore, but being blatantly disrespectful and not willing to be open-minded. And I hate to say it, but I do think social media has destroyed people's communication skills.
Social skills are out the window because of...
Definitely.
I agree.
Yeah, it's cuckoo.
And I think to go with that too, people are so afraid to go against the grain, to go against, this is how we've always done it. This is how it is. People are so scared to go against that they just fall in line. Whereas I think if we had more discussion on like differences and more openness to different ways to do things, that it could make some changes for the better.
Conversations instead of attacks.
Exactly.
I think would be a great way to,
And I do feel like in certain aspects of the political environment, there are common goals between the left and the right side. However, they're letting those different goals get in the way of them coming together to discuss a common goal. Because when I look at politics, I see more of a bridge and connection in the economical side, in that everyone wants things to be efficient. Everyone wants things to be cheaper. You can't necessarily agree on how to do those things.
I think it's really just a lack of information and misconstrued information.
And that has also been a big topic this year. That's been a big topic since I started here. Transparency. We have asked so many times to see contracts that are made with the state health plan and how those could be improved. Because when you hear about some of these contracts with Ozempic, for example, was a very big one, Wegovy last year. Why is America getting charged so much more than any other country when it's made right down the road in Clayton, North Carolina?
I think it's also a lot of legal language that no one else understands. They talk about legalese. And it's like, okay, can we layman's terms this? Like, put it in the General Assembly as the language that it needs to be. And then maybe break it down to the general public's way of speaking so that we can understand what is actually happening. What does it actually mean to pass this bill? What is it going to change? How is it going to affect state employees, city employees, everyone else?
And when we're talking about transparency, yes, we are talking about those contracts, but we are also talking about where the money goes for different agencies, because state employees and retirees have not been getting significant raises the past few years. Retirees have gotten a cost of living bonus. That is not the same thing as a cost of living adjustment. It's usually a 1 or 2% bonus,
which is a tank of gas for some people.
About that, because after taxes, that brings them down to almost nothing. And we have discussed at the office before, the state retirement plan is supposed to fund itself. Our members and all retirees have been contributing their 6%. And what are some things that you guys feel like Gen Z and millennials want to see more transparency on?
Where do we start?
Exactly. And I think it's different for each person.
Well, going off of the legal jargon and the terminology that they use, I just feel like the reason why they do that is the general public can't understand it. It makes their jobs a lot easier, because if their constituents and people voting don't know what's actually going on. It makes their job a lot easier. They can do almost whatever the heck they want. And that's just my stance on it. I'm like you. I wasn't the biggest political person until I started working for SEANC.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, within the last year and a half, 2 years is when I really started paying attention, especially on the state level. I mean, since 2020, the federal politics have been jammed down our throats.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. Like, a lot of our generations are just burnt out because it doesn't matter left or right. They all talk about change and what they want the future to be or to look like. But it's always the same thing every single year, every single election. It's the same issues. And it almost seems like a distraction on other issues that are probably more important.
Yeah.
There's way more prevalent things that directly affect not only our generation, but the elementary school kids who are coming up and the high school kids who are about to become adults.
Yeah.
There's really no reason to argue about some of these more ethical issues. But a lot of these national ethical issues, it's just like we've been arguing about it since I can remember, and nothing's changed.
Since before we were born.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like almost every single election cycle, you might take 1 or 2 steps forward, but as soon as that election happens, we start taking 3 steps back.
Yeah.
Once again, our generation doesn't really seem like there's much hope.
And do you think that maybe that as we grew up, we just happened to enter that age of the workforce and college and the time where we can vote? And do you guys think that that has an impact on the way that this generation and the millennials all view politics?
I would say I noticed after Obama was elected, that's when everything got more extreme because, he was the first Black president because it was such a progressive thing. And to us, it's like such a minor thing. But for, I don't know, it just wasn't the same after that. And then it got more extreme and more extreme. So all of our normal things to us in our big melting pot, all of a sudden people wanted to separate them out. And then I noticed another big change during COVID and people getting locked in their house. QAnon came about, and in my opinion, I know we don't want to get in like conspiracy theories or anything, but I saw a huge change between like big divides after that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely COVID was like the nail getting the final nail in the coffin.
I think to go with that, I think it became about surviving instead of living.
Yes.
After COVID hit.
Yeah, because everything did just skyrocket during COVID, too.
Things shut down, prices went up. People didn't know how to come back if they've been in the house because most people were stuck in the house. People didn't really know how to come back out. The social climate changed. Everything really changed. And then there was this huge divide. Not going to get too far into it, but huge divide with the vaccines. People were fighting about that, fighting about wearing masks, fighting about everything. And it really just became about surviving instead of just living.
And to add on to that also, now that we are adults and we finally came into our career, what we have now, as far as, let's say, a salary, back in the day was great. It would have been perfect. Now we're considered poverty level.
Mm-hmm.
Like buying a house, they're like, oh, you make this amount of much. If it's like below 100K, you're considered poverty. I'm shocked by that. And then we have older generations not understanding that. Like, oh, why can't you afford a home, an apartment? It should be like $300 a month. No, it's like the average is what, 15,
Mm-hmm.
1,500. Even a wedding dress back in the day, they probably thought like 200 was a lot, but you will spend about $1,000 plus on a wedding dress.
Yep.
So things like that, it's like they don't understand. And then because they don't understand, they're like, why are they so angry? And I'm like, how are you not understanding? Why are you not aware of the political environment, what we're all going through, and not understanding why we're not having kids and everything else?
Yeah.
Well, with the purchasing a home, a couple of days ago, I was reading an article. I want to say it was from Forbes, but don't quote me on that. I was just going through the state by state how much your household income should be to afford I think it was a 3-bedroom home, which is a modest home.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina was somewhat mid-range, like a little higher, but it was $48,000 annually for a household income is what they said you should make to comfortably afford a 3-bedroom home. I don't make that.
No.
I would love to make that.
That'd be comfortable.
I could probably.
Apparently, that would be barely comfortable.
Exactly. That's what they said.
If I stayed in my apartment, I'd be comfortable.
Yeah.
But
So in 2020, I was a sophomore in college at North Carolina A&T. But when I remember seeing stimulus checks go out everybody receiving thousands of dollars across the United States, I knew that it was going to be a price increase. I would say history previously told us or showed us the trickle-down effect.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's generous, nice, and actually seems like free money at the time. Now we see the prices increase. That's things that I think citizens should have maybe seen before, but are actually feeling it now, which our generation will feel that for a long time of the different stimulus checks and the child's vouchers that are actually going out. Now with us graduating and actually wanting to start a career, we're looking at different state agencies and state jobs. There used to be just a requirement when it came to degrees. Now it's high school requirement, diploma, and actually having the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't have that experience, you're not going to get a good job, a good salary when it comes to the state. And you're going to start off at maybe $30,000, $35,000, which is kind of hard if you're graduating college. You might have student loans to pay and actually living on your own.
Maybe that the benefits and the pay aren't as appealing to our generation as they were to the generations that came before us, because the benefits are dwindling.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
And they're asking for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A bachelor's degree for entry level? What?
Overtime hours a lot, especially in the Department of Corrections.
And if you have for yourself, like I have my master's degree, so working for $35,000 just seems kind of like a ripoff. I hate to say, being able not to actually have insurance when it comes to retirement is crazy. I know SEANC does offer insurance, supplemental insurances that you could take with you when you retire, which is amazing. And SEANC has always been stepping up to actually help state employees to provide affordable insurance. That's huge, especially in today's age. Providing that knowledge when we do membership drives as a MER, a lot of people do jump and sign on to our different insurance plans because noticing that you're able to take it with you, honor domestic partnerships, open enrollment. People do need these types of insurance after the closed deadline time from working with the state.
And those discounts save your money, boo.
Can't forget that.
People used to work for the state for the benefits. They're like, oh, the money's good enough, but you have really good benefits. Well, the benefits are decreasing and the salary's not increasing at the rate that it should be to counteract the benefits decreasing.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready for the wacky weird question of the week?
Play it.
Let's do it.
Sammy's wacky weird question of the week.
So this week, our wacky weird question of the week is, what is an underrated skill that you think everyone can benefit from?
I'll go first. I put making plans, detailed plans, and then taking the initiative to conduct them. And I say this because I'm somebody that when I'm laying in bed, I'm thinking about tomorrow. I'm thinking about everything that needs to be done, and I'm trying to schedule it out to where I'm able to get as much done as possible on time. And there are some people out there when it comes to, let's say, vacation, I'm like, I don't want to make the plans. I don't want to make the calls. You go ahead and take care of it. And I'm like, it's a big skill and taking charge. So I think it's underrated. More people should try it.
It's a good one.
Okay, so to piggyback off some of the stuff we were talking about, I think communication is one of the skills that we need to bring back into play because social media has kind of killed being able to actually effectively communicate with each other because one person talking at another person and then just listening, that's not communicating. Arguing and fighting with each other as a whole conversation, that's not effectively communicating. We need to stop hearing and we need to start listening to what someone else is saying, fully listen to it, grasp it, and then respond. So effective communication, I think, is a skill that we all need to work on within ourselves.
I will say transparency is a skill that I would love to see more people to have. Being honest with yourself, not lying to people. For example, legislative, being in positions who are actually not following through with their promises. So I would say transparency is something that people need to work on or either provide to others.
An underrated skill, say reading an analog clock.
That's a really good one.
This is when I
So
when I
true.
worked for the state. I was at Alexandra Juvenile Detention Center. Those kids asked me every 5 minutes what time it was, and there was a giant clock on the wall. And these 14 to 19-year-olds, they just would look at me with a blank stare. They didn't know how.
Wow.
So learn to read a clock.
Can I add to that?
Mhm.
Learning the 24-hour clock.
Yeah, military
time.
time.
Yes.
Well, it's not even military time.
I'm just saying,
Like-
people need to, like,
The vast majority of the
You
world
subtract
uses
12.
it. The
sorry.
exactly. I agree with you.
I just mess up with the subtracting sometimes. Like, for the most part, I know how to read it.
Me too.
I understand it. It's just sometimes whenever I'm adding and subtracting, I get a little confused and they'll say like 1,700 hours. And I'm like, let me do the math in my head.
Right?
Subtract 12.
Is it 5? 5 o'clock.
Well, sometimes I'll see, like, 17, and I'll be like, 7. No, 5. It's fine.
Yeah.
I did a different way. Let's say if it's 1400, I just subtract 2, so I know it's 2 o'clock.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, that too.
See, I should use that way. That sounds better for me.
I have one more silly one to add.
Yeah.
Leaving a public restroom without making a mess.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Preach.
That's a good skill. Especially when you go to like football games, baseball games.
Airports.
Concerts. Oh my
Yes. Concerts are the worst.
Like some people have no shame. I don't know how you do it. I want to leave my stall and have someone go in and be like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. It's clean and I still have toilet paper. Whew.
How about just saying thank you? Common decency.
Yeah. I think for me, my answer is independence. I think people have slowly grown more codependent on constantly having someone around and having someone to help them with doing different things. And I think that we need to work on accepting being alone with yourself and being able to do things on your own.
And I think with that, welcoming boredom. Because
Mm.
people are so quick to just pick up their phone.
Or just not being productive. People are like, oh, I feel like I'm wasting time. Like, no, it's being relaxed is not wasting your time.
Once again, our generation, was it FOMO?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
FOMO is a huge thing.
We don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
But you remember our generation, I think we were the end of actually going outside,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
playing 3 or 4 hours, and then the street lights come on or it gets dark, you have to be in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I remember internet used to make a noise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
House
like,
phones and
Couldn't be on the
Yeah.
phone.
oh, if mom wanted to talk to somebody, no more internet.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely had that. Well, I'm sure we could talk for hours about all the differences in our generation versus the upcoming generations as well as the previous generations. I thank you guys for coming and joining me today on this special Gen Z episode.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love to do it again. Part 2 coming soon.
Let's do it. Let's do it.